Hey y'all, today's video is all about DLC suggestions for Mortal Kombat 1. Now since Chaos Reigns has been announced and since we found out which DLC characters we'll be getting, there's been a ton of conversation within the community about which characters should have been DLC. As a result, a lot of players have put forward their own suggestions about which characters they would prefer to see as DLC for Mortal Kombat. So in this video, I'm simply going to react and rate these suggestions. Let's get started. So this was the first tweet that caught my eye, and it states the combat pack we wanted versus the combat pack we got. And essentially this is comparing two groups. So just as a reminder, these are the DLC characters we're getting. You're getting Ghostface, Noob Saibot, Sector, Cyrax, Conan, and T-100 from Terminator. And this, according to this account, are the characters we actually wanted. Now, at least they include Sector and Cyrax. I think because Sector and Cyrax have been gender bended, they've gotten a lot of unnecessary hate. And I feel like it's not warranted and it's a little bit unnecessary for Sector and Cyrax to be talked about in this way. They're still classic characters. So I'm glad that they still included them because I actually don't think they're bad choices for DLC, especially given that they're cameo characters in this game. But I really want to focus on the other characters they suggested. Now, Jade, hands down, I am just shocked that she's not in the game. I am positive she will be DLC because I don't think NetherRealm will make the same mistake they made in MKX and have Jade be unexplainably absent for no apparent reason. I think in this new era of Mortal Kombat, they've probably given her more prominence, and I'm sure she's gonna pop up in some other role. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna get Jade. Serena, I think, is a great choice because again, she wasn't really fully realized as a character in Armageddon when she was first introduced, or where she was like really playable. And I think as a cameo, you don't get to see too much of what she has to offer. I would love to see a fully playable version of her. Much like Jade, I'm surprised Sonya is not is not on the roster, mainly because when MK1 was announced, they stated the cameo mechanic. So the cameo system that kind of defines how Mortal Kombat 1 is played was based off of Sonya having her drones. And so I'm sure there's a version of Sonya that they designed, and for whatever reason, they're saving her for DLC. Also, in this new era of Mortal Kombat where we're probably gonna run into a lot of the other realms, there is the Order realm, and in my mind, that's where she would be. And so I think we're gonna get her eventually. I hope we get her. I think that'd be really cool. Cyrax makes sense. Kai's a big one. I think this game is a huge love letter to the 3D era characters, but missing from that list is Kai. This game brought back a number of the 3D era characters that we had not seen in so long. I'm talking about Ashra and Havoc and how they revamped Li Mei and Reiko. I mean, that was just so cool. But Kai is missing from that list. He is referenced in this game, particularly with Ashra. She always talks about Master Kai in some of her intros, and so I would love to see him return. I think he'd have a cool play kit, a cool toolkit to play with. And so in terms of, is this a combat pack that we wanted? I'm a little bit 50-50 on it. I think it's a strong combat pack. I would give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's a strong combat pack. I think it's a strong combat pack, but I don't know if it's something that we wanted. I think, again, these three are strong female characters to have as DLC. And given that we know that Sector and Cyrax are also women, I just don't think they're gonna put this much women in DLC, which is crazy to me, but I think that's just the era that we're in. So I give this an 8 out of 10. So this one says, how do y'all like my combat pack? Now, as I've said, these suggestions are coming from community members, and a lot of them may come from kind of character stan accounts, but I still think it's worth a discussion. Obviously, this is a Jade stan account, so they have Jade front and center here. And on the left, they kept Ghostface and they kept Noob Saibot, which I think are interesting choices. So again, as I've said before, I think Jade is a strong choice. Scarlet. Scarlet. I think in this new era of Mortal Kombat, I would probably relegate Scarlet to a cameo. I'm not opposed to her coming back as a fully fledged character, a fully realized main roster character. I'm not against it, but I think the problem with Scarlet is she's never had, like, her story. I just don't see how it could be any more interesting in MK1. I think in MK11, that was her peak. So unless they, you know, if they bring her back with Jade with some kind of strong prominence in the story, I just don't see how they can make her more interesting. And so I wouldn't mind seeing her as a cameo, but I think there are other characters that are stronger picks than Scarlet. Kintaro is interesting. I think the problem with Kintaro, when you look at the four limbed characters that Mortal Kombat has, I think Kintaro is always at the bottom of the list. And so maybe Mortal Kombat 1 is an opportunity for him to be brought forward and kind of fully realized and fully playable in like a cool way. But I just don't see it happening. And given that Goro is a cameo character, I don't even want Kintaro as a cameo character. And so therefore, I just think this character is a weak selection. Beatrice from Kill Bill. I think she totally fit in as a guest character, but I think we're really done with guest characters in Mortal Kombat. I think with this combat pack, I think the community would agree with me that it's just a little bit too much. So I think this is really scraping at the bottom of the barrel. Not to say that Beatrice is a bad character. I think she would work, especially in this game. But I would ask, like, do we really need her? You know, I would much rather a Mortal Kombat character than another movie guest character. So this combat pack, I'll probably give it a 5. I think Jade is the strongest choice here. They kept Noob Saibot. With this game, that means every ninja character is going to be playable, and we haven't had that since MK9. Every male ninja character. And so I think Noob Saibot is fine. Ghostface is fine, I guess, because those are guest characters. But in terms of the Mortal Kombat character, I don't think this is like a strong bunch. Like I said, Scarlet I would take as a cameo. Kintaro I don't want in the game at all. And I guess we can keep Jade and Noob Saibot. So I would give it a 5 out of 10. So this account gave us multiple suggestions in terms of who should be combat pack, which I really appreciate because it'll give us a lot to talk about. So the first one is a classic. So Sonya, Kano, Jax, Goro, Jade, and Kabal. This is probably assuming there's no guest characters, which at this point is the name of the game. So off the bat, all these characters are not going to make it. I think 4 of these characters are probably solid choices. And for me, I would definitely, again, Jade is a theme here. I can't believe she's not in the game. So Jade and Sonya make sense. And what's funny about this group here, these 3 characters are normally playable together. In most Mortal Kombat games, if Sonya is playable, so is Jax and so is Kano. If you go through all the rosters, that's typically how it is. And this is actually the first game in a long time that all 3 of them are not playable. And so it would make sense for them to show up as a combat pack. And so this makes sense. I'm personally not a fan of Kano. I'm kind of over the character. I think he should just stay as a cameo, but I understand his popularity as a standalone character. So I think this is plausible, Kano becoming DLC. I think if you're gonna put Sonya, you have to put Jax. Those characters are always linked together. And like I said, these 3 are probably a fair bet. I would also add Jade to that. Like I said, I'm surprised Jade hasn't shown up yet. And so I think these 4 characters have a strong chance of showing up. Kabal, I just could care less. I don't hate the character. I think much like Scarlet, it's like, I think the character has hit his peak. I think Kabal specifically is just popular because he's a classic character and not necessarily because the character has anything to offer. I'm open to seeing what this character can do in this new era of Mortal Kombat should he become a main roster character. I think he has a distinct background that could be played up in this new era. However, as a cameo, I think he would work really well because that's what Kabal is kind of defined by, his special moves and not necessarily his character. And so I think he'd make a great cameo character. Goro, I think he should just stay as a cameo character. We don't need him on the roster. We honestly don't need Goro on the roster. So I would give this combat pack
few moments later
a 9. A 9 because they nailed this trio right here. This trio is always playable, and this is a strong combat pack by themselves. If you threw Sonya, Kano, and Jax in a combat pack with another guest character, it would sell. Sonya is the queen of Mortal Kombat. She's the first lady of Mortal Kombat. She may not be the most popular these days, but show her some respect. I think Jax is a great legacy character. And again, Kano is always linked to these two. So I would be interested in what the three of them are doing in this new era of Mortal Kombat. The second group are 3D era characters. Taven, Dagon, Draman, Kira, Kai, and Hotaru. So this is honestly a weak combat pack. This is really weak. I think the strongest ones here are Taven and Dagon can really do something because we have not heard of the Red Dragon yet. I think they've been loosely mentioned. Have they been mentioned at all? That's a good question. I have to look that up, but Taven and Dagon can really introduce like that Red Dragon, Black Dragon dynamic. And Taven specifically, I think he on his own is a really, really strong candidate as a DLC character, particularly in this new era of Mortal Kombat. He was one of 2 new characters introduced in Mortal Kombat Armageddon, he and his brother Dagon. And so for that reason, I think Taven is a solid choice. Dagon, I would give it to Dagon as well. I would put him number 2. If Taven is in, I think Dagon should be in as well. Again, there aren't a lot of organic connection or organic established familial connections in this game, and I don't want to lose that. And so if Taven comes back, I think Dagon should come back. So that's 1, 2, and the third strongest one, like I said before, is Kai. Kai has so much to offer, and he is already mentioned in this game as Master Kai, which kind of means maybe he was revamped and given more prominence in this era of Mortal Kombat. And with Liu Kang being at the helm in this game, you can kind of see him developing his area of the world with the Wuxi Academy, and Johnny Cage is there, Ashra is training there. I think Master Kai fits right in, so I would love to see those 3 characters in. Kira is a toss-up because unfortunately, Kira comes from an era of Mortal Kombat where she was defined by her special moves and her fighting styles, and even though she was a new character in Mortal Kombat Deception, her special moves and her fighting styles were not new. They literally fused Sonya from Deadly Alliance, Kano from Deadly Alliance, and in Deception you got Kira.
Kira is a Black Dragon member. She's kind of with Kano and everything, and one of the cool things about Kira was that because she's kind of with Kano and she's against Sonya, well, the one thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to give her a combination of all of Kano's moves and Sonya's moves from Deadly Alliance. So she's kind of like the morph of Kano and Sonya. So she's a bad person, but she has all of Sonya's moves. She also has Kano's fighting style, and all of their super moves combined together we gave Kira.
And so unfortunately, she's a weak character. She looks different, and I think her weapons definitely fit in that Black Dragon. You know, they were always using a two-handed weapons. I think she would have to be fully revamped. She did show up in a Mortal Kombat animated movie, completely redone, where she kind of looked like, man, I don't know how to describe it. I'll put a picture here of what she looked like when she showed back up in this new, in the Mortal Kombat movie. But I think if they take that direction with her, I think she could be successful. I always thought Kira should be to Kano what Harley Quinn is to Joker, like that villainous sidekick, especially play up like that female seductress type thing. I think she could be successful in that space, but on her own, I don't think she's a strong choice. But I have faith seeing what they've done with Ashura and Lee Mei as well as Natara. But I don't think she gives the team much to work with. So I think she's a weak choice. Draman was just weird. I was never a fan of this character. I think the character looked unique. But I think other 3D era characters are stronger than Draman. And I would say the same for Hataru. Hataru was always weird to me, but I could see Hataru having more to work with. Again, that Chaos Realm, Order Realm, if those realms come up, Hataru is a player in that. Hataru back in Mortal Kombat Deception did have some unique special moves, and then these weird things on his back. I mean, he has something to work with, but I'm personally just not a fan of the character, so I wouldn't go with this. So like I said, this combat pack has something to work with. I would give this combat pack a 7 out of 10 because I think Taven, Dagon, and Kai are really strong choices, and I think you can work with Kira depending on which direction they take with her, but I wouldn't go with Draman and Hataru. The next combat pack is titled NRS, and so this is Devora, Aaron Black, Kotal Khan, Cetrion, Cassie, and Jackie. This is a hard one, honestly, because none of these characters have showed up. Technically, Jackie and Cassie have shown up in like future versions of themselves in story mode, but they were killed by Katana anyways. And so I would do away with Cassie and Jackie. Johnny Cage is here. There's no Jax and there's no Sonya. Without those characters being prominent, I see no value in exploring their kids in the future. And so I would immediately eliminate them. To me, I think Kotal Khan is a strong choice. I think the Sun God aspect, he looks unique, and I think his transition from MKX to Mortal Kombat 11 was really solid. So I would actually love to see him in Mortal Kombat 1 and see what that looks like. In MK11, they tied his story to Jade. And so again, I think if Jade shows up, there's a strong chance that Kotal Khan shows up because they had like this lover. They made them a pair, which I think worked for both characters and made sense to me. So I think Kotal Khan is a strong choice. Devora, I could see her as a cameo. I never liked Devora. I never liked Devora. I think I would put her alongside Ferritor in that they were just created just because. And I think she was given far too much prominence in MKX. I mean, I could understand why they would do that, but I don't really like the character. And again, as I've pointed out in my Chaos Reign discussion piece, these tentacles are now associated with Sector. So I think at best she should be a cameo character. Aaron Black, I'm not a fan of Aaron Black, but I do understand he is a super popular character. My only question is there are not a lot of henchmen in this storyline. If you notice, a lot of characters on this roster are centered around Earthrealm and kind of Outworld, around the royal family. And so I just don't see, without like Sonya and Black Dragon characters and things like that, I just don't see where Aaron Black fits in. Like, you telling me Aaron Black is just randomly working for General Shao? Like, you know, make it make sense. And so at best I can see Aaron Black as a cameo character, but I would welcome a newer take on the character. The only way I would want him to be a main roster character is maybe he comes back and he's working with Sonya. You know, like something interesting like that. But if he's just gonna come back with his guns and be a gunslinger, I'm not interested.
Many hours later.
And of course, Cetrion. Cetrion, I would love to see Cetrion return. I think she was the best character created in Mortal Kombat 11. I understand why Garrus took off and why he's popular, but I would love to see Cetrion return. I would settle for cameo, but I would love to see her return as a main roster character. I think they're gonna have to revamp her toolkit to make sure she's not kind of reminding us of other characters that are already in the game. But I love Cetrion. I mained her all throughout my MK11 competitive career. But I love Cetrion, and I would love to see her in this new era of Mortal Kombat. I think she would be a solid choice. Like I said, I would settle for cameo, but I'd love to see her as a main roster character. So like I said, in summary, I would not take the Jackie and Cassie route. I just don't see the value in having them in the game at this point. I wouldn't even go with Devora or Aaron Black as well. I think Cetrion and Kotal Kahn make a lot of sense. And so only 2 out of 4 of these characters are really strong, but because they're really strong characters, I would give this an 8 out of 10. I would give it an 8 out of 10 because it gives you something to work with. Here's what I would do. I would do Cetrion and Kotal Kahn as main roster characters. I would do Devora and Aaron Black as cameo characters, and I wouldn't even include Jackie and Cassie. That's what I would do with this pack. So this tweet asks, which would you rather have back? And these are pictures of Fujin, Scarlet, Nightwolf, and Kabal. So who would I rather have back out of those 4? I would definitely go with Fujin. I would go with Fujin because I think Fujin is just such a cool character, and his return in MK11 was so fantastic. I think, however, the likelihood of him coming back is kind of slim. NRS is very good about not making you pay for the same character twice. So they made us pay for him in MK11 as part of the expansion DLC story. And so I don't see them making us pay for him again. They could break that. Tekken has certainly broken that mold because we had to pay for Lydia twice. But I would not like to pay for Fujin twice, but if I had to choose, I would choose Fujin. So if I didn't choose Fujin because he was already DLC, that also eliminates Nightwolf, because Nightwolf came as DLC with Fujin, and so that would take both of those characters out. I think story-wise, Nightwolf, I would love to see what he's doing in this new era of Mortal Kombat. I think that would be cool. But because we already paid for him, I don't want to pay for him again. And so that really leaves Kabal and Scarlet. And if I had to choose between Kabal and Scarlet, I would choose Scarlet. Like I said before, I understand Kabal's significance in terms of being a classic character in Mortal Kombat. But I think now that NRS has really delved into some of their 3D era characters, I think a lot of them are far more interesting than Kabal. And so I would choose Scarlet. And again, Scarlet was revamped for MK11. And I think when you bring back characters, that's how you do it. They took her skill set, which is, essentially creating weapons out of blood, and they turned it into like blood magic, right? They gave it a definition. She did all these cool things with it. She had a projectile with it. She had a dagger, which, in this game, I don't even think she needs it, because if she can use blood magic to create weapons, I think she should just do that. So I would love Scarlet to come back and she's just creating a ton of weapons with her blood magic. So out of those 4, I would choose Scarlet. I know that seems hypocritical because I just said, I would settle for cameo, but out of those 4 characters, because again, Fujin, I'm not trying to pay for these characters twice. I already paid for Fujin and Nightwolf as DLC in MK11. I'm not trying to pay for them, and I would not want to pay for Kabal. I'd rather pay for Scarlet. To close out this video, I just want to answer this question. And so the tweet says, so the question is, did this grow on y'all? And there's some answers here about whether or not it's grown on y'all. For me, it has not grown on me as well. It really hasn't grown on me. I am really just turned off by this much guest characters. So I think there's several ways you can look at this. If you look at it from a story perspective, I think there's an interesting story to tell with Noob Saibot. Sector, and Cyrax in this era of Mortal Kombat. I think there's a viable story there. We've already gotten glimpses of it. You know, they're no longer cyborgs. These are mech suits. They're from different tribes who don the mech suits. This being Bihan instead of someone else is an interesting dynamic. And so it's grown on me from a story perspective. From a character perspective, it hasn't grown on me. If you look at Kombat Pack 1 and who we got as playable Mortal Kombat characters, we got Quan Chi, Ermac, and Takeda. I think that those are solid choices, and I think they each add something different to the roster in terms of playability. I am not convinced that these three characters will do the same, but I'm open to being wrong. We've already seen what Cyrax is gonna bring, and I think that's pretty different. And so maybe I do feel, maybe I'll eat my words and take it back. Maybe these will do something different for the roster, but if the question is, have they grown on me? The answer is no. They haven't grown on me, and I don't want to keep repeating myself, but I'm just disappointed in the selection for guest characters, and I'm disappointed that half the Kombat Pack are guest characters again. I think for the first Kombat Pack, it was acceptable because it was Omni-Man. You know, like Omni-Man in Mortal Kombat, Homelander in Mortal Kombat, Peacemaker in Mortal Kombat, like that. You know, I think those are far more exciting choices than these three guest characters. And so for that reason, this Kombat Pack has not grown on me. Again, I really want to see what these characters do to the roster in terms of like playability, and we'll see what the community does with them. And also, I think the fun part about this is seeing like this Sector with Cameo Sector, or this Cyrax with Cameo Cyrax. I think that's where it's gonna get interesting, because thus far, you know, there are a couple of cameos who are also on the main roster. Kung Lao, Scorpion, and Sub-Zero. But now we're getting two more. And so I wonder if that's going to be the trend. Like, what happens if all the DLC characters going forward are already cameo characters? I think that will be interesting. So to close out this video, this Kombat Pack has not grown on me, but I'm still excited nonetheless to continue to get content for Mortal Kombat 1. And so I'm looking forward to playing it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll catch y'all next time. Bye.